through, who has a better understanding when it comes to foreign policy and what bilateral relations and diplomatic policies is something that India is going to follow with this upcoming visit of President Putin, but it is nevertheless a wild card in global geopolitics and world economy. As we speak of this upcoming visit, we are just down by a few hours now when President Putin will be touching down New Delhi. Now, as far as this visit is concerned, this is going to be the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit. And during this two-day visit, President Putin will be holding talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, both of the leaders who will be exchanging views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. Now, there are a number of agreements that are expected to be taken up on the table, signed, including when it comes to areas related to trade, economy, healthcare, academics, culture, media, and all of this is going to be provided in this visit as an opportunity for leadership of India and Russia to review the progress in bilateral relations and to set the vision for strengthening the special and the privileged strategic partnership. So about a few hours from now, the countdown there running continuously on your screens as Prime Minister's invitation has been accepted by President Putin, and there is going to be also a private dinner that would be hosted by Prime Minister Modi. This is going to be the 17th time that the two leaders are meeting. And what exactly is going to be the trump card? Because the whole world is going to be watching with a very keen eye on this visit between President Putin and Prime Minister Modi. So let's get you exactly how the world would be reacting. And this is going to be one of the multiple firsts that we are looking at, because this is the first visit of Putin since the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, and the first visit of Putin as far as Russia's policy on trade ties with the US that has been affected with those 50% tariffs that has been imposed by the President of the United States of America. So let's talk about what's being brought to the table there. This dosti that Trump has now penalized India with the tariffs of nearly 50% for buying discounted oil from Russia and allegedly fueling Russia's war machine. And since Trump's sanctions, India's imports of Russian oil have now come down drastically. Let's tell you exactly what does it mean in terms of trade and energy. Trade ties there that we are looking at. Before the war, the bilateral trade amounted to nearly 65.70 billion US dollars. And now what is being estimated as a target by 2020 to reach around 100 billion US dollars. Let's talk about as far as Russian oil import is concerned. Before the war amounted to nearly 2.5% of the imports. During the war that we're looking at going up to 35.8% of the imports. And this month's projection by year end, it has now been projected at estimated around 20% approximately. However, as I said, Russia continues to be India's all-weather ally. And also traditionally and strategically speaking, this dosti has come to India has helped a lot of time, especially at the time when India is being singled out and is being penalized by the United States with 50% of those steep tariffs for buying discounted oil from Russia and fueling, as they have been calling, that the war, that the path of peace actually goes from New Delhi, but it is India which is fueling the Ukraine-Russia war. All of this has been fact-checked time and again when India actually has shown the mirror to the world. So all of those claims and the facts on the table, let's put them out, and how India has countered those claims by the US, made by President Trump and also by his advisors multiple times. So what have they been saying and rather projecting? That India fuels Russian war machine. Imagine that. Now, when it comes to the fact on the table, no sanction on Russian oil. In fact, when it comes to the price cap by G7 and by EU countries, why aren't they being penalized? That is a question that India asks. Another claim that has been made by the US. India is now being punished for buying Russian oil, and that is the reasoning or the logic that they gave, that they have imposed nearly 50% of tariffs on India. But is India the biggest buyer of Russian oil? No. It is China there rather. Is China being penalized as well? No. So China being one of the biggest buyers, they're nearly 47% of the market and 38% when it comes to India and also Turkey, which are the other two countries that have not been penalized on part of United States. Now US has been claiming on part of multiple advisors there of President Trump, calling it that this is Modi's war. But is it in fact on the table? Let's put out exactly what has been India's very firm stand and the statement that has gone out, saying that India buys oils from traders and not the Russian state. India has made it clear on the table as far as India being a developing country, and all of the rates are actually driven by market dynamics. Now, US has been claiming that the path to peace actually goes via New Delhi. So if New Delhi acts, they believe that Delhi has the power to stop the Russia-Ukraine war. But Is that the fact on the table? Well, the facts completely say otherwise. Let's take a look at these figures there. 37% as far as when it comes to Russian PNG purchased by EU. China, Turkey. Now, isn't this something as far as double standards, which India has time and again has pointed out that India is not going to bow under such pressure? And also, when it comes to US claiming that sanctions on India is so that the war can end. But however, who will then take the credit? Because here, Donald Trump has been hinting that he will end another war, hinting at a 9th possible war, according to him, that almost a year in office, he has ended multiple wars. But the fact on the table that EU still imports Russian crude oil, EU sanctions exempt US and Canada, and EU sanctions exempt Japan till 2026. So all of this are actually the facts that have been put on table. Yes, when it comes to the purchase, that has now drastically come down. But as far as the mature leadership of President Putin is concerned, there is a reason why both of the leaders have this long-standing ally and their friendship that we are looking at, this dosti. That will set yet another example when President Putin lands in New Delhi this evening. Let's take a look exactly what's going to be on the agenda.
Now let's also take a look at the India-Russia Reloss Pact, or the reciprocal exchange of logistic support. Why is this so very significant? Well, it has already been inked by the two leaders. But will this defense pact prepare India for a war, or will it insulate India for war? Well, let's tell you why. This may be the perfect deterrent for our wily neighbors such as China and Pakistan. Well, this will ensure mutual deployment of warships and aircraft. Both nations can send military formations without the long legal case-by-case access. Also, this will ensure mutual use of airports as well as port spaces. It will also regulate dispatch of troops, of equipment, as well as logistics. It can be used for non-military purposes as well, and will help in humanitarian aid, in disaster relief efforts as well. So, Reloss Pact wouldn't be about fighting wars, it would be about showing India's strategic flexibility to both Pakistan and China. Why? Well, here's why. When it talks about fuel, ammunition and repairs, this can be done anywhere and much faster than before, because now warships can refuel without returning to their home bases. Aircraft can land, it can refuel, and it can be redeployed from friendly bases as well. Damage can be repaired to any aircraft outside of India. Doesn't need to come back to India, get fixed, repaired, and then sent. It can be done at friendly bases as well. Also, it ensures that there are going to be no diplomatic delays in case there is war. Aircraft, warships, access is already pre-approved. So it's going to be much faster because the process has already been put in place. Also, backup bases. What do backup bases for India means? Means higher survivability. That means, let's say, tomorrow our ports are under attack. It gives us alternate ports which are being made available to our forces. In case there are emergency landings which are required, it is going to be guaranteed with a friendly airstrip. Also, longer naval reach. That's going to be very significant. That means India can now have longer patrols for our ships, because the ships don't need to return to home base to refuel and then get redeployed. They can continue with their journey, their patrolling after refueling at Russian bases as well. Also, at a time of evacuation and crisis response, it's going to increase that significantly. It's going to ensure that there are faster civilian evacuations via Russian facilities, which will be available for India. Now, the deterrence effect. That's very significant, because now India will not be running dry, nor is it going to be isolated just in case our neighbors are up to their own tricks. India can fight much beyond its shoreline as well, as I was telling you with the patrols. Now, this is what Reloss will, however, not do. It's important for us to point that out as well. It does not say that this is a war pact. It is logistical support, not a war pact. It will not ensure automatic military support either. It will not give joint fighting in case there is war. Also, it does not allow for the use of foreign troops in war. it also does not talk about any shared command either. Also, it will not allow for permanent stations. But will it be one of the biggest deterrents against enemies of India? Well, for all you know, this visit by President Putin to India may just be Prime Minister Modi's Brahmastra. Many have called it the trump card against those who may turn out to be enemies for India.